morning, everybody. My name is Rich. Did you catch it? You did.
Good morning.
I meant good morning. That was not an accident. Let me explain it to you. We often use that as a greeting, don't we? And sometimes we don't even, we just say it. And there's a couple ways you can take that, and I mean it in both ways. When we say good morning, you think of morning. Sometimes you ever go through a day and think, I just can't wait to go to bed, get up, and start all fresh. I've come to understand something from a philosophical perspective that's based on a theological foundation. Because, just pause for a moment. Did you feel that? Did you sense it? You know what it was? It was a brand new moment. You never had that moment, and they just keep coming. There's a sense in which every moment is like morning. And what we make of the moments that we keep getting will determine either how good the next one will be or how difficult it may be. There is a sense that this is a perpetual morning. You can also understand this when I say good morning. And I'm so glad whoever said it. I did it at a funeral. I typically do this at a funeral. It was afternoon. This guy said good morning. This guy said, it's afternoon. I didn't want to embarrass the gentleman. But I wanted to explain to you. There's a M-O-R-N-I-N-G, morning, fresh start. I get to start again. And there's a M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, mourning, grieving. There's good grieving. It's important to grieve well, to mourn well, to have good M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. I'm getting to that stage in life where some of us are, and this is not a new rodeo for some of you in this room, where you outlive your friends or your family. I've known Art for 35 years. We were good friends. And I want to help us have good grieving mourning. And I think this is what God wants for us. Now, I know He wants us to mourn well. And He wants us to walk into the new moments so we can live well. And if we grieve well, the moments that keep coming will be better. I know this about life. You have to embrace your pain. If you try to anesthetize it whatever way, with alcohol or drugs or food or television or busyness or work, all you do is postpone it, and it festers in there to where it does come out. And sometimes it comes out in anger, road rage, or snapping at one another, and then we feel bad. So it's important to mourn well. 35 years ago, I met Art. I met at the YMCA. I saw him because you could watch, he was on the racquetball court. We played racquetball together for 30 years. But the first time I saw him on the racquetball court all by himself, and I wanted to play a game, and I didn't know who this guy was. And I went down, I knocked on the door, and they opened the door, and I said, hey, you interested in playing a game? I kid you not, this was Art's response. Okay. You knew it, right? I mean, you can see him doing that, right? He showed me who was king of the court. He was going to show me who was the king of that court that day. I don't remember the score of the game, but I want to tell you, he put a whooping on me like I haven't got a whooping before. And he did. And we kept playing and kept playing. I don't know when it was Art started liking me. And he started liking me to the point at when he knew he could just beat the tar out of me on the racquetball court. He says, this guy ain't so bad after all. I feel better about myself. I don't know. But Art was a very unique man, though. You know, how many of your friends of Art's? You're not related, but you're friends of Art. Let me just see your hands. Okay, cool, good. And I presume that the rest of you are somehow related in some way, shape, or form. You know Art was one of a kind. Art was fiercely loyal. Fiercely loyal. I knew he went to the nursing home to visit a couple friends. I think it was maybe Saturday or Sunday, I think it was. Yeah. When they had nobody else. Right. They're often the forgotten people, and Art was there. Always. He was there regularly. It's like clockwork. In fact, I think Art worked on a rotation system. It was just, he not only was loyal, he was also a perfectionist, and it was just structure. You know, I've been with Art a few times when we're driving, and if I wasn't driving, Art was still driving. I learned with Art, there are two ways of doing things. The wrong way and Art's way. And how. Yeah, I know, that's exactly right. And you family, you know that deeply. But Art also had an incredible amount of love in his heart. He loved his family. It was Davy, I was checking, and Davy talked about, even during the military days, Kathy, about what a loving, caring husband he was and how faithful he would be to you. He was certainly a man of principle, as somebody else had mentioned as well. Jim, referred to him as an amazing man, and indeed, Jim, he was. I've never met a man like him. And he was known for helping everyone. I mean, the guy was out mowing lawns. I'm thinking, Art, what are you doing? You can't be doing this anymore. And still he would do it with no thought of reward for him, but just because it's what you did. Devotion, discipline. It was also a deep love in his heart. When we played racquetball, Joe, my friend back here, he and Art played a lot together, and we were talking about some of those days, but you tell me if I'm mistaken here, Joe. Art wore the same socks, gym shorts, and t-shirt for 30 years that I know of. In fact, I don't think I ever saw him on the court. I mean, one time, for whatever reason, he couldn't wear those shorts. I think we really beat him bad that day. I don't know. But every time, those shorts, they had more patches on them than Grandma's quilt. I'm telling you, they did. And he couldn't play without those things. And the t-shirt looked like he was shot with a machine gun at times. He just couldn't play without those things. Aggressive. He would dive for ball. At 70 years old, I'm thinking, I'd really like to be able to play when I'm 70. And he would dive for a ball, and the rest of us sat just shaking our head. He knew nothing else. He knew nothing else other than to live with everything you've got and to put it all on the line. That was my friend Art. He lived off the grid. If you walk into his house today, now Kathy, I'd be curious to see if this changed. You know what I want to say? No. I walked into the house for the first time. It's still there. On the wall above the kitchen table is a rotary phone. A functional rotary phone that he would use. If he ever used a cell phone, it was because he didn't want to talk on anything else. It was the last option he had. Never happened. He refused to go to Planet Fitness because at Planet Fitness, he wanted to go, but they wouldn't take cash. Kathy offered her credit card. He still, on principle, wouldn't do it because they wouldn't take cash. He lived totally off the grid. The government could track most of us at any point in time, tell us where we were, what we bought, anything else. Not Art. Yeah. Not Art. Yes. Exactly. I've never met a man like him before.
We always called him
Maybe.
Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker. Good reason for that. Good reason. I know this, as we age, we either get harder or we can become more tender. And I know that's what happened in Art. I was privileged to be with him a lot in his illness. And you know, Art was a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Tough, tough dude. He's tough. But invariably, before we leave, I don't know who would say it first, but one of us would say, this was not typical of Art. I'd say, I love you, Art. He'd say, I love you, Richie. Became a lot more tender. Some of the things that you kids went through, I know. He regretted some of that. And probably what you went through too, Kathy. Because Art, just that stubbornness of his ways. But he was changing. Art was, in fact, I think it was right here when his mom had died. If I'm not mistaken, he never left the funeral home till the burial. Mm-hmm. He stayed all night. There was just just something about that that's noble, admiring, and kind of silly at the same time, you know. But he was fiercely in love with his mother. And I knew, and I had it on my calendar when his mom's birthday was, the date of her death, and I would try to contact him because I knew he would go out to the grave. In fact, I think every Wednesday he went, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Wednesday and Saturday.
Wednesday and Saturday he would go. And so I didn't think Kathy was up to it, and I really wanted to do it. I wanted to go out with him. And I said, Kathy, I'd like to take him up to see his mom's grave. It's her birthday. It was one of the most sacred things. I don't feel free to share everything with you. It was one of the most sacred things I ever witnessed in my life. Art's very feeble at this point. I was afraid he'd fall just trying to walk to the stones. And we arrived, and he designed, if I'm not mistaken, the stone for his mom. He wrote a poem that is on the stone. I watched him as he tenderly, lovingly spoke about Mom and then his own actions, even at the grave. I was in awe. It was special. Very tender. I was privileged that he would feel safe enough with me to be that vulnerable in another man's presence. He was very unique. We made it back to the car, and inside the car I had a conversation I knew I'd have with him, and someday I didn't know when. I really wanted to talk with him about this. For you see, it probably 15 years ago, it had to be probably that long ago. After Art gave me a good spanking on the racquetball court or whatever, we were sitting there getting dressed and getting ready to leave, and Art said to me, he said, Rich, this was so out of character for Art too. He said, and I don't know what was going on with him, but he said, you seem to have a peace about you. Always have a peace about you. And I said, Art, that's Jesus. That's what he does, Art. And that's about where we left it. But that day, on September 23rd, we got back in the car, and many of you in the room know about his brother who was shot and killed. I knew that really devastated your dad a lot. It was a hard thing. It was a hard thing for anybody. We talked about those events, and we talked about eternity. There are some people who don't believe there's a God, and I run into them, and I say this to those who do not believe in God. I really admire your level of faith. I don't think I have that kind of faith. Oh, it's faith, make no mistake about it. I heard Bill Maher, who is an avid atheist, very outspoken atheist. He was on Larry King many years ago. And he said on that show that day that he said, my atheistic faith, and I said to the TV, thank you very much, because I admire Bill Maher for his honesty, his intellectual honesty to admit that it's faith, because there's no evidence. We all have the same evidence. If you take out your cell phone and you bust that up and you launch it into space, would you tell me when it's going to come back as a complete cell phone? It's ludicrous. The argument against God is, okay, where did God come from? That's a great question. That's a fabulous question. I want to know this in response. You tell me where anything came from. I think it's legitimate. I don't understand. It makes more sense to believe that there's a God, and I know he is because I know what he's done in me. And so Art and I had a conversation that day about God and about eternity and eternal life. And when I got all done with the conversation, I said, Art, would you like to pray and invite Christ into your life? He said, yes, I would. I said, you can do it one of two ways. You can just say whatever is on your mind, or you can, I'll help you. He said, Richie, I'd like you to help me. Call me Richie. Only Art and his family is allowed to call me Richie, okay? He would have never prayed a prayer like that if he didn't mean it. I got all done, I asked him just for confirmation. I said, you meant that, didn't you, Art? He said, yes, I did. To mourn well is to embrace your pain and feel it. Don't run from it. It'll always catch up with you. It could even kill you. Because that amount of distress in your system can cause disease that could eventually take your life. Embrace it, feel it. Cry, be angry if you must. But feel it. Embrace it. You'll be surprised at how much quicker you are able to conquer. It may never go away, but you'll be able to get over and get on top of it. So that the moments that just keep coming will be better. And God is always there to help you. I believe in him with every ounce of my being. He has brought peace into my life, a peace that I didn't realize Art saw. But I'll never forget the day he asked me. Art was my friend. I'm going to miss him. You're going to miss him. You won't miss some of the aspects of God, but you will miss him. He did love you. He cared about you. Those of you who are his friends, you're a friend for a good reason, aren't you? He was really loyal. He was a good man to know. That's all I got. May I pray for you? Is it okay? I need to pray for me too, Lord. As I think about my friend that I won't see again on this side of heaven, on this side of life. But I particularly pray for Kathy, Jim, Susan, Sherry, Lola, and that little baby that Art didn't get to see. I pray peace over them. And for some even sitting in the room, our minds go back to other occasions where it wasn't Art, it was someone that we knew and we loved. And we understand how this family's feeling, because we are sharing even in those moments together. I pray that we'll be able to mourn and grieve well, so that the moments that continue to come our direction could be much better than what they would be if we don't grieve and embrace that hurt and that wound and talk about it and feel it and share it. You are referred to as the God of all comfort, the Father of compassion. May you become that reality, I pray, Jesus, for these whose hearts are so wounded and heavy. Amen.
Kathy, on behalf of the United States government, the President of the United States, and a grateful nation, I present to you the flag of our country in honor of Art's service in the United States Marine Corps. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you so much.
In just a few moments, we're going to provide all of you an opportunity to come forward to Art's casket to pay your final respects to him and to embrace Kathy and Art's family before we leave here tonight. But before we go tonight, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of Kathy and Art's entire family to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here tonight with Kathy and the family, demonstrating your love and support for them. I talked to Kathy earlier. She wasn't sure how many people would come tonight, but for a good part of the evening, we had a line out the door. So Art had such a wonderful impact on his family and all of his friends. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank his very good friend, Pastor Rich, who so eloquently tonight shared his friendship with Art, with all of us, and shared the love and hope for all of us through the teachings of our Lord Jesus Christ. I thought you did it. It was just beautiful, Rich. So again, thank you for all being here. We're going to start with those seated in the back, ask you to come forward to the casket, and then you can embrace the family. And then if you would take your lead through the room on my right and out to the foyer into your cars. We want to empty this room as best we can so that Kathy and the family can have as much privacy as they say their goodbyes here tonight. So thank you very much again for being here.